Back again to the Dark Souls Trilogy, and once again I asked y'all to pick which run I should do, and y'all picked Pyromancy only. So this is me taking on the Dark Souls Trilogy using only Pyromancy. Also, make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more crazy runs like these, or just like seeing me suffer. And if you want to be notified when a new video drops, make sure to join my Discord channel, because it does a better job of it than YouTube. I also have a VOD channel, so if you would like to see unedited versions of some of my runs, check out my VOD channel at Kane VODs. With that said, let's get into the rules for this run. Rule number 1, I can only use Pyromancy to deal damage and nothing else. Rule number 2, no summons except for Dark Souls 1, which I will go over that when we get there. Rule number 3, I will have to rank all 3 games at the end to see which game did Pyromancy the best, and suffer the wrath of the comment section. And lastly, rule number 4, beat all bosses. With the rules out of the way, we can get this run started. For my class, I went with Pyromancy for obvious reasons. I then named my character after the best pyromancer in all of anime, Ace. With my character made, I bolt on over to Oscar to get some freshly squeezed lemonade. I then pick up the Pyromancy Flame so that I can finally do damage, and who better to test this out on than the Asylum demon. The Pyromancy class starts off with the Fireball spell, and it only has 8 casts. This had me a bit worried at first I wouldn't be able to kill the boss, but come to find out I was just underestimating the spell. It had no issues burning those thick cheeks. With the Asylum Demon's buns nicely toasted, I make it to Firelink Shrine, where I make sure to pick up the 5 humanity nearby because it will be very important for the Chaos Covenant. I then head on down to Blight Town to do some sneaky rolls to get Power Within. The reason I am doing this now is because I have no way to upgrade my Pyromancy Flame to do more damage. For those of you who do not know, the Pyromancy Flame cannot be upgraded like normal weapons through the use of Titanite shards. You need to find a Pyromancy teacher like Laurentius to do so. But as you can see, he is currently trapped in a barrel in the depths. So for me to get to him, I need to beat the Capra demon, and without Power Within, that wasn't going to happen. The tricky part for the Capra fight was going to be taking out the dogs and the Capra demon since I only have 8 shots. But I got lucky that the dogs got trapped behind Capra Demon. So when the fireball hit him, it also hit the dogs behind him, allowing me to take out both dogs without wasting a cast. Which is perfect because I will need all 8 shots to kill. Fuck. Maybe I'll get lucky and the last cast will kill. Fuck. Hold on. I can fix this. I just need to shimmy on down here real quick, and there we go. Nothing a little gravity can't fix. With Capra Demon defeated, I got the Depths Key, so I can now rescue Laurentius. I then pop all the souls I had collected while adventuring and got my Pyromancy Flame to +7. I had a bit of extra souls afterwards to also get Combustion, which is a close range fire spell, as you can see with me toasting the Taurus Demon's wiener and meatballs. I then talked to Solaire because it's always nice to catch up with an old friend. Life gets crazy when you get older, so don't forget to reach out to an old friend who you haven't talked to in a while. After that nice chat, I collected some more souls to pop so that I could buy Fire Orb. In spell runs like these, I like to use every offensive spell that I can get at least once. Which means I must use the ultimate Pyromancy spell in all of Dark Souls, Gravity, again. With now having the FAP ring, I take on the Bell Gargoyles, which wasn't much of a fight as much as it was a massacre. After giving the Bell Gargoyles a taste of their own medicine, I upgrade my flame to +8, so that I could chunk fire orbs at Moonlight Butterfly so that I could watch her die an agonizing death. So that I could upgrade my flame to +9 and fill my heart with joy. At this time, I could go take on Quelaag, but I figured I would finish off the last boss before ringing the bell for Sin's Fortress. For Gaping Dragon, I went with Combustion because it has 16 casts and is the fastest spell I have currently. I ended up using my second spell slot for Power Within. But when it ran out, I thought I might have fucked up because the damage was fairly low at this point without it, which had me worry that I was going to need to reset, but luckily I just had enough with 1 cast to spare, and with that, I got my Pyromancy Flame to +11. Okay, now it's time to talk about Quelaag and all the fire boss's dilemma. So, most of you already know this, but Quelaag, Ceaseless Discharge, Centipede Demon, and Bed of Chaos cannot be damaged by fire at all. The only Pyromancy spells that can do anything to them are the Toxic and Poison Mist that you can get right after Quelaag, and lastly Black Flame, which also does physical damage. But it's locked behind the DLC. It is possible to get all these spells through glitches, but from every video I have seen on this, it's just not possible with Pyromancy, or at least that's what I thought before writing this script. A Reddit user that goes by Ruined Dows was actually able to do it with Black Flame. They ended up using RTSR for 50% damage increase, Crown of Dusk for 20%, Dusk Crown Ring to increase the cast amount from 8 to 12, Power Within for 40% more damage, and Sanctum Shield to regain 2 HP per second to keep themselves from dying from Power Within. The most important part of all this was making sure to hit Quelaag at her human section because she takes more damage. With this, they dealt 271 damage. Quelaag has 3,139, which means with 12 casts you will deal 3,252 damage, killing Quelaag in NG with only using Pyromancy. Yeah, I had no clue about this, so I just let Maneater and Quelaag have a catfight. I like to think of this as the Ace and Yamato reunion where Ace comes back to fight Kaido, but in this case, Yamato is pulling all the weight. Well, when her AI is not trying to get herself killed. For the love of God, Mildred, walk around the damn lava. Alright, Mil, this is it. You're one hit away. Just hit her. Nope. Damn it, Mildred, don't roll into the lava. Oh God, she went and got herself stuck. Come on, one more hit. This is why no one likes you.
Skibbity Ohio Riz, yo!
I take it back, you can walk into the lava. After 5 attempts, Mildred's AI was finally able to conquer walking into lava and beat Quelaag. After that interesting fight, I make out with a worm and become Leto the Second so that I can talk to Mr. Hunchback to be able to buy Poison Mist and Toxic Mist. I figured by having Toxic Mist in conjunction with Combustion, I would be able to kill the Stray Demon. That was not the case. Feeling like my damage was a bit low, I found Quelana and bought Greater Combustion. But feeling like that wasn't going to be enough to kill Stray Demon, I did a bit of research and found out that the Bellowing Dragon Crest Ring and Crown of Dusk increase Pyromancy damage. I really wish I knew that before the Capra Demon fight. So I rescue Griggs, buy the ring, and take on the Stray Demon. With 8 casts from Greater Combustion and 13 casts from Combustion, I was able to make some Rocky Mountain oysters. After slurping some oysters, I upgrade my Pyromancy Flame to plus 12, giving me the power to kill the Hydra and the Golden Crystal Dude, to be able to get the Crown of Dusk. Still only having 2 attunement slots, I head to the Catacombs to get the Dark Moon Seance Ring. I figured for the Iron Golem I will need Power Within and both Combustion spells to get the job done. Oh, I thought Sorcery was busted, but this is fucking nuts. With Iron Golem easily burnt to a crisp, I get my P-Flame to plus 15 and ascend it to Pyromancy Flame. You know, they could have given it a different name like Chaos Flame or something. Why give it the same name? I don't know. I then stumble across Laurentius, who has gone to the dark side, and unfortunately for him, I have the high ground. Before heading off to Anor Londo, I join the Chaos Covenant and use all my humanity I have saved up to get my rank to 3, which will give me Great Chaos Fireball and Chaos Storm. The cool thing about Chaos spells is that they leave lava afterwards, dealing damage to those standing still, which is perfect for one-shotting Ornstein. If only that worked on the first try. For Smo, I just lit his sack on fire, as you can see him keeling over grabbing his gonads, or at least attempts to. He does have a beer belly after all. I then meet up with the hottie with a thick body. You know, we always talk about Guinevere's bazungas, but never her sweet butter buns. She is a fantastic baker. Her North Carolina-style biscuits are just to die for. Once done eating some butter biscuits, I get my Pyromancy Flame to plus 2 and buy Fire Whip. The boss I thought this would be the best suited for was Sif, since it's pretty easy to get under her and smack away. The Fire Whip is an interesting spell. It didn't really act like a whip like I thought it was going to do. I was expecting more like a Balrog Fire Whip, not so much a fancy sparkler that you just twirl in a circle. Either way, with Sif dead, I upgraded my P-Flame to +3 and figured it was time to test Great Chaos Fireball. With Gwendolyn always running away, I had anticipated that the lava left over from the fireball would still damage him before he teleports away, and I was correct on that assumption, which made for a very easy win, netting me 40,000 souls to finally max out my Pyromancy Flame, leaving me with only 2 spells left to buy. So I headed on over to the Goon Squad and started farming. I do have to say, it is nice to actually be able to kill them instead of having to do the whole song and dance of leading them to the staircase for them to fall off. Once done farming, I get Firestorm and Greater Fire Orb, aka Inte. True One Piece fans know who Ace used that attack on. I decided to use it on Seath because he's an easy target to throw giant fireballs at. The forward cast of Greater Fire Orb would have killed Seath, but I ended up missing the first one, so I had to finish him off with Combustion. After blowing Seath to bits, I walked on over to the Painted World, dueled with King Jeremiah so that after I beat Priscilla, I can get his outfit. Speaking of Priscilla, I used Firestorm on her, which had no issues finding her while she was invisible and killing her, earning me a new fit. At this point, I could start leveling up since I bought everything that I could for Pyromancy, but with already beating more than half the bosses in the game, might as well just finish the run off without leveling up. So let's just get into boss rush mode. For Pinwell, 4 Kings, Artorias, and Manus, I went with using Great Combustion and Combustion, since it allowed me to get hits off quick while being able to dodge right afterwards. Very important for the Pinwheel fight, it got a bit spicy there. The only exception to this was for Manus. I used Black Flame instead of Combustion since it did more damage and I could get it right before the fight. The only boss that gave me trouble out of these 4 was the 4 Kings. With being level 1 and them having some douchey attack patterns, it led to my death 4 times. For Nito, Sanctuary Guardian, Calamite, and Demon Sage, I went with Firestorm and Greater Combustion. Firestorm would just annihilate their health, allowing me to finish them off with Greater Combustion. Calamite was the only one that I needed to use RTSR instead of Power Within due to his high fire resistance. You might be wondering why not use Chaos Storm since it's stronger. Well, with it taking up 2 spell slots, I would need it to one-shot, and I was not confident it could get the job done. Sadly, Nito, Guardian, and Calamite got a single kill on me. All those recent Liza P challenge runs have me a bit rusty. Up next is the Centipede Demon. My go-to strategy was going to be to get him toxic and poison and then smack away with Black Flame, which did not go as planned. I could see this working with RTSR and Dust Crown Ring, but with being level 1, I wouldn't have enough attunement slots for that, so instead I decided to cheese him through the wall. To do this, you just need to run to the corner on the left side, let the boss grab you, and spam all 4 triggers to escape his grab. I actually had no clue if you spam all 4 triggers, you can escape the grab and nullify all damage. Just to show you that there isn't any funny business, I get grabbed, spammed away, and right after I land, failing the cheese, I get hit. I have over 600 plus hours in this game and I'm still learning new things. Then there's the Bed of Chaos where I just kill her with Black Flame, which allowed me to get Fire Tempest from Quelana, the strongest Pyromancy spell in the entire game, so that I can use it to one-shot Gwen at level 1. Not going to lie, that's pretty damn cool that Dark Souls allows you to do this at level 1. I just wish it didn't take me more than 10 attempts to pull it off. But with that said, the Dark Souls 1 portion of Pyromancy only comes to an end. Oh, also, I just realized as of typing the script, I forgot about 2 spells. The Chaos Fire Whip, which is just the Fire Whip, but it leaves lava behind, and Fire Surge, which is just a flamethrower. For some reason, I thought all spells could be bought or obtained from Quelana, so that's my bad. The total runtime was 8 hours, and I only died 26 times. Not too bad for a level 1 run. With DS1 finished, time to start Dark Souls 2, but first, a word from today's sponsor. Me! I am currently working towards reaching 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I have been trying to think of a challenge run to celebrate that. Currently, I am working on my 50k special video where I have to beat Sekiro starting at NG plus 7 with base health, Demon Bell, and Charmless. So I am open to any crazy ideas that y'all may have. So if y'all would like to see that, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, if you have been enjoying this video, click the hype button. This is a new feature YouTube is trying out for small creators, and I would appreciate the support. But with that said, let's get back to the Pyromancy run. I start off by naming my character Shoto because My Hero Academia seems fitting for this setting. For the class, I went with Sorcerer since Dark Souls 2 for some reason doesn't have a Pyromancy class, and for that fact, in DS2, Pyromancy scales with Intelligence and Faith, and the Sorcerer class has the highest combination of the two, sitting at 18, whereas the Cleric only has 16. With no Pyromancy starting class and the regular Pyromancy Flame being locked behind Flexile Sentry, I will need to go get the Dark Pyromancy Flame in the gutter, which means I'll need the Cat Ring. So I ran on over to Hyde's Tower to use the spell Almighty Push on Dragon Rider. I then used Dragon Rider Souls to get the ring, talked to Sad Man to get the blue seal for more HP, and used the leftover souls to get my vigor up to 10, so that I could survive the fall into the well. On the way down, I make sure to grab the Pharos Lock Stone and the Token of Spite because I will be needing them to obtain some new spells. Once in the gutter, I jump from the Torch Circle platform to get the Dark Pyromancy Flame. The Dark Pyromancy Flame starts off with S scaling in fire and can further increase its damage through hollowing, but overall the normal Pyromancy Flame out DPS's it once it's fully upgraded. So I'll be saving all my upgrade materials for the normal one. Before leaving the gutter, I make sure to get the 2 Fragrant Branches of Yore and an actual Pyromancy outfit. I then use one of those branches to free Rosabeth so that I can actually be able to buy spells. But I'm a bit broke at the moment. So I continue forward into Shaded Woods and pick up some souls along the way. While here, I make sure to get a Fire Seed, which is the upgrade material for Pyromancy in Dark Souls 2. I also get the Cloanthe Ring +1 and the Clear Bluestone Ring +1. With no longer being a broke bitch, I buy Poison Mist and Fire Combustion and use my leftover souls to get my attunement to 13 to be able to use both spells. The reason for getting Poison Mist over Fireball or Fire Orb is that the majority of enemies and bosses can be inflicted by it. This isn't like Dark Souls 1 Poison where it doesn't do that much damage. DS2's Poison and Toxic can do some crazy amount of damage and will help with bosses with high fire resistance. With that said, I head to No Man's Wharf to chat up with Rose's teacher to buy Amber Herbs off of him just in case I would need some extra spell cast during the Flexile Sentry fight. Which, come to find out, I did not need because a single cast from Poison Mist was enough to proc Poison. The reason I needed poison for this fight is that fire deals less damage to enemies standing in water, and this entire arena is covered with water. So I just needed to poison Flexile Sentry twice and then combust all over him to take him down. With Flexile taken care of, I earned the Pyromancy Flame with an extra Fireball spell. I then talked to Rose to buy Fireball, Fire Orb, and one of the 3 Fire Seeds she has to sell, so that I can upgrade my Flame to +2 and use the rest of my souls to get my attunement to 16 so that I can have a 3rd spell slot, and my Faith to 9 for more damage. I then head back to Hyde's Tower to poison a dragon so that I could kill him with fire, allowing me to fight Ornstein, who can also be poisoned, which led to good tick damage while I hurled fireballs at his face. Seems that Wombo Combo was just too much for him. After that easy fight, I buy the remaining 2 Fire Seeds from Rose to get my Flame to +4 and get my Faith to 17. I then kill Scorpion Man for the 2nd Dragon Ring, use a Branch of Yore to get access to the Lion Mage set that upon wearing will increase my casting speed, which I could have gotten sooner, but I forgot about it. I then went to the Grave of Saints to fight the Rat Vanguard, but first I wanted to see if rats could be poisoned, and obviously enough they cannot. So going into the fight, I just hurled flaming fireballs of doom and combust all over the rats. Fuck, not again, that is not what I meant. After escaping PETA, I get my Faith to 20 and Intelligence to 16. At this point, I wasn't too sure who I wanted to fight next, so I just went take on Notchka. Notchka sadly is immune to poison, but does take decent damage from fire. For her, I just baited out her tail attacks to get free hits in. My biggest mistake was when using Fire Orb and Fireball. I would get carried away spam throwing and end up wasting a spell because I didn't wait long enough for her tail to come back up. so I end up having to use an amber herb to help finish the fight. With Najka out of the picture, I get my attunement to 20, intelligence to 20, and ADP to 9. So with my faith in a knit at 20, I can talk to Falcon to get the Hex Hood for extra spell cast and Sunset Staff, which I will need to obtain another spell later on. While being in Executioner's Chariot's neck of the woods, I decided to take him on. The Necromancer ladies went down with a few buffs to the face, and the undead horse can be poisoned. You heard that correctly. Undead ghost horses apparently keep their lungs. On top of that, they are very weak to fire. With the undead horses poisoned to death, I get access to Titchy, and with having a token of spite on me, he will sell me 3 new fire spells: Firestorm, Radiant Combustion, and Fire Whip. You can also get a 4th spell from his Covenant, but I'll be getting that later on. Also, before Executioner, I got the Fire Seed outside of the boss room, so I was able to get my Flame to +5, and while I was at it, I got my Endurance to 10, since casting magic in this game costs stamina. Wanting to increase my Pyromancy Flame some more, I fight the Skeleton Lords, who are no match for Fire Orb and Greater Combustion. For their army, well, let's just say Firestorm had no issues burning them to ashes. Well, except for Wheelie and Teddy. They somehow survived the storm. With Wheelie and Teddy dead, I grab the Fire Seed in Harvest Valley, teach the Smoking Hot Fire Lady some new firebending moves, realizing now I could have named my character Zuko. Well, that's a missed opportunity. Oh, hello, Covetous Demon. Goodbye, Covetous Demon. Back at Majula, I get my Pyromancy Flame to +6 and get my Faith to 28. I then headed to the Lost Bastille so that I could get access to Strayed. Now, I know I don't have to fight the Sentinels to get to him, but I figured I would just get it out of the way. Come to find out, Living Armor has lungs too. I also found out Flame Whip can stun lock them. Did not expect this spell to be this good. After the fight, I make sure to grab the Bastille Key. I then freeze Strayed so that I can buy Lingering Flame, Flame Swath, and trade the Rat Soul for Toxic Mist, which is very effective on the Lost Center. Here, I also test out Flame Swath, which places an explosive fire orb next to the enemy. Great when it lands, not so great when the boss jumps away from it. Due to that, I had to finish the fight with Greater Combustion. With the Cinder dead, I can buy her handcuffs from Mr. Douche, which will increase my Pyromancy damage. Speaking of increasing my damage, there is a Fire Seed in the Rotten's boss room. I don't have to kill him for it, but figured it couldn't hurt. Oh, also, can someone explain to me how the Rotten, the thing made out of decaying bodies, can be poison and toxic? Because I cannot come up with a good reasoning as to how. Besides Poison and Toxic Mist, I also used Lingering Flame, which shoots out a fire orb, and when an enemy is nearby it, it explodes. Will definitely come in handy for some future fights. With the Rotten dead, I get the Fire Seed to get my Flame to +7 and get my Attunement to 25 for a 5th spell slot and my Faith to 43. So before doing this run, some commenters had told me Pyromancy in Dark Souls 2 is more balanced than DS1. Y'all sure about that? Because Mytha disagrees. You can stun lock her to death with just the Fire Whip. This isn't just because fire spells are extremely strong, but for the fact that Poison Toxic combo is outright busted. Most bosses in base game like Smelter Demon and Old Iron King can be trivialized due to this, which apparently the devs noticed this because oh boy, some of the DLC bosses were a bit of a different story. But I am jumping ahead. Before leaving Iron Keep, I headed upstairs to cover myself in water and use Flash Sweat so that I could get Chaos Fire Storm. Tragically, I didn't know about this water combo when trying to get the Fire Seed. Back at Majula, I talked to Rose to get my Flame to +8 and level my ADP and Vigor up a bit. I then trot on over to Brightstone Cove to test Chaos Firestorm and Firestorm on the locals. From my findings of estimation, I believe Chaos Firestorm to be better, which the congregation agrees with, since it took only 2 casts of it to kill them. So at this point, I figured it was time to get Great Chaos Fireball, but the thing is, you have to do PvP farming for the Brotherhood of Blood, and I was not going to do that. So I decided I was far enough into the game that I could give it to myself. Just felt wrong not to try out each Dark Souls version of Great Chaos Fireball. With that said, I made sure to use this new spell on Freya. It did pretty decent damage, and the additional damage from the lava wasn't bad either. But with only 3 shots, it wasn't enough to kill the overgrown spider, so I had to Fire Whip her to death. With Freya dead, I get the Brightstone Key, which allows me to get Great Fireball and another Fire Seed. I then completely forget about the Fire Seed and only level up to 101 while in Majula. I then make my way to Drainlet Castle where I get the Frozen Flower for the Ivory King DLC and fight the Dragon Riders. Well, not so much as a fight, as it was just me bullying them with toxic poison and explosions. With the riders poison dash exploded to death, I go on over to Ilium Lois for the Fire Clutch Ring, but first I needed to unfreeze the area, and to do that I needed to fight Ava. Okay, someone from FromSoft needs to explain this one to me. How in the hell can an undead horse, living armor, and a rotten corpse be poison dash toxic, but a giant cat can't? Someone has a lot of explaining to do. This put me in a bit of a sticky situation since Toxic and Poison Mist took up 2 slots, and the only other 3 spells I had on were Great Combustion, Great Fireball, and Flame Swath. Combustion and Great Fireball did fine, but Flame Swath would miss most of the time. Even if Flame Swath didn't miss, I wasn't going to have enough cast to kill Ava, and I made the mistake of not equipping any herbs. So I ended up having to do some quick menu maneuvering to pop one real quick. Probably the first real challenge in this run since I came close to dying multiple times, but Lady Luck was on my side that day and my no boss death streak was not ended yet. With Ava out of the way, I can get the Fire Clutch Ring. I also realized I forgot about the Fire Seed at Lost Bastille and Drainlet Castle. The nice thing about the one at Drainlet Castle is it comes with another Great Combustion, increasing my cast amount to 14. With those seeds, I was finally able to max out my Pyromancy Flame, and what better boss to test it out on than the Looking Glass Knight. I originally was going to test Toxic and Poison on him, but Ava left me mentally scarred from that, so I didn't even try. The unpleasant thing about Looking Glass Knight's fight is, it's in the rain, which means my Pyromancy damage does less. So even with using strong spells like Great Chaos Fireball or Lingering Flame, the damage was not great. I ended up having to use a good amount of herbs for this fight, and the bastard got to summon 2 NPCs. Luckily, the NPC's AI is dumber than Mildred's, and thanks to that, I was able to pull out the first try. I then used the Looking Glass Knight's souls to start working on my intelligence level. Now, having access to Shrine of Amana, I can farm the Twinkling Titanite Shards so that I can max out my armor for better defense. Which then brings us to the Demon of Song, who I am pretty confident is an undead frog thing, so why can't it be poison and toxic? I just don't get it. This game confuses me. Honestly, doesn't matter. I just busted a few times in its face until it went down. Coming back to the topic that Pyromancy is busted, this is my fastest fight ever against Velstadt, and I am not just saying that because of the Poison Dash Toxic, but because look how much damage the fire spell does to him. Like, you can't tell me this is more balanced than Dark Souls 1. DS1 bosses just had less HP. If DS2 bosses had the same amount as DS1, these fights would be a lot quicker. Once done picking on Velstadt, I went back to the Shrine of Amana to get Fire Tempest because I had no clue it was even there. I then reached Aldius Keep, which is very important for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'll be able to free these 2 statue guys, and upon killing them will give me 2 Bonfire Aesthetics, 2 Wilted Dusk Herbs, and 2 Elizabeth Mushrooms. Which then I can use one of those aesthetics to reset the area to farm them all over again, allowing me to stock up on herbs and Bonfire Aesthetics. The second reason is I can talk to Nav, who will ask me to get 3 items: Gilligan's Ladder, Kaelin's Helm, and Falcon's Staff. By giving him these 3 items, he will give me the Forbidden Sun spell. Forbidden Sun is a giant fireball that practically has no cast time, which is really good, but it's held back by only having 2 casts. Plus, it takes up 3 spell slots. After killing the Guardian Dragon, I take on the Dragon Trial so that I can get the 3rd Dragon Ring and talk to the Ancient Dragon. Not fighting him yet, I just need to do a few things before that. With having Ashen Mistheart, I can tango with the Giant Lord. I ended up finding out you can just hang out by his left leg and loop his stomp attack, which made it very easy to poison and throw fireballs at him until he died. Not being satisfied with beating up the Giant King once, I decided to do it a second time. It felt more fitting to fight him in this order. A little bit of Poison Toxic with a hint of Fire Tempest was the perfect recipe for an easy win. Speaking of easy wins, I decimated the Pursuer outside of her boss room. I wasn't done massacring bosses yet. I paid the Gargoyles a visit, where Fire Tempest and Chaos Storm made quick work of them. Except for Toby. That son of a bitch somehow survived. This is why no one likes you, Toby. You take the fun out of everything. With Toby taken care of, I kill a giant for a soul of a giant and the forgotten key, which will allow me to start the long and tedious Dark Lurker questline, so that I can fight him. To my surprise, Dark Lurker is insanely weak to fire. I'm not even using a Bright Bug, and I am taking massive chunks of health off of him with Great Chaos Fireball. The most satisfying was when I got the double hit with the Flame Swath. Seeing those big numbers always fills my monkey brain with joy. After that, it only took one Forbidden Sun and Chaos Fireball to finish him off. Now with that done, I must repeatedly burn the Rat Vanguard to death, which was very satisfying with the Chaos Storm, so that I can stock up on Toxic Mist. I will need all of this so that I could kill the HP Sponge that is the Ancient Dragon. I had a field day hanging out by his toes as he slowly died of boredom. At this point, I got my intelligence to 50 and attunement to 30 for a 6th spell slot. With Vendrick being the only boss left in base game before the final bosses, I decided to see if I could toxic poison him. Weirdly, he is immune to it, go figure. I then made the biggest blunder in my challenge running career. I wasn't paying attention due to being dumbfounded that Vendrick couldn't be poisoned, that I didn't watch where I was going and got myself killed by the easiest boss in the game. Excuse me as I walk into the lava. I then came back from the dead and fireball Vendrick in the face. I know I just said a second ago Vendrick was the only boss left, but come to find out I forgot about Royal Rat Authority, which I'm not too shocked since Lingering Flame blew up the ads and Combustion blew up Giant Rat Dog, making this fight very forgettable. With all my stats being where I wanted them, I will just be leveling Vigor from this point on. With that said, time for boss rush mode. Starting off with the list is the Goon Squad. My plan was pretty simple, poison dash toxic the 2 melee users and kill the ranger with fire. My only regret looking back on this is that I could have used Lingering Flame on the melee users, since I could set it up while running away and they would just walk into it. Oh well, easy fight nonetheless, but not as easy as Alana was. With Lingering Flame, I easily took out her trash mobs, and with using only fireball spells, I was able to speed kill Alana. Right after Alana is Sin, who I thought was going to be tricky to deal without the mist spells, but I actually ended up finding a really good strategy to beat him. So if I stayed at about mid-range, I had a good chance to get Sin to do his horizontal fire breath attack, which left him wide open to be hit. Now he does have a fire attack that just shoots straight at me, but if I stayed right in front of him after the attack, he would always follow up with the horizontal breath attack. So I just kept running away and baiting out these attacks until I won. A lot easier than I expected it to be. I wish I could say the same for Fume Knight. Fume Knight cannot be poison or toxic, and he has a very high fire resistance, because even with Bright Bugs, I wasn't doing that great of damage to him, which wasn't too much of a problem at first, since I knew if I just rolled back after any of his combos finish, I could get a hit off. What actually screwed me over was not paying attention to my cast amount, and ended up animation locking myself for a second, leading me to get hit, which led to a panic healing, and y'all already know how that goes with Fume Knight. So I went back in, but this time with Great Combustion and Flame Swath, thinking it would be better than the lower fireball spells. They were not. Great Combustion just put me in danger most of the time, and Flame Swath has its usual problems of just missing. So I had to rely on Chaos and Greater Fireball to get the job done, which used up all the herbs I had on me, and I had to start using the menu to refill my cast. This fight was a long one, but I'm just happy it only took 2 tries. Then there was Blue Smelter Demon, who thankfully can be poison and toxic, and surprisingly takes a good amount of damage from fire, leading to a very quick victory. Last up on the old Iron King DLC is Sir Alone. Luckily, in my last Trilogy run with using crossbows only, I found out the best time to hit Alone with range attacks is after he does his dash attack. So I just used what I learned from my last run to make him a walk in the park with fireball spam. Combustion was only used because I ran out of fireballs. Up next is Lud and Zolin, where I thought maybe Chaos Storm would do a lot of damage since it could hit twice, but apparently Lud said fuck that. Then Zolin joined the party and decided it would be fun to take up the whole screen, leading to my demise. But I was a fool for thinking I could use anything but Fireball. Just look how in 3 casts it took off half of Lud's health. Not only that, when Zolin went Super Saiyan, Chaos and Great Fireball were able to keep his health low enough for me to finish him off with Combustion. In all 5 Trilogy runs, I have never killed Zolin while he was in his enraged state. That just proves once again how busted Pyromancy is in Dark Souls 2. Still don't believe me? Well, let's check out the Ivory King fight. His soldiers were a bit of a pain, but nothing fireballs couldn't solve. Once the Ivory King came out, it seemed like it might be a rough fight, but once I got the boss staggered, I could spam Great Fireball, which has extremely fast casting time to lower his health super fast. Combine this with Crimson Water for pure fireball spam, the Ivory King didn't know what to do with all those balls in his face. Easiest Ivory King fight I have ever done. With the Ivory King defeated, I level up for the last time to 171 and take on the final 3 bosses. At the start with Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I went with Poison and Toxic, but I should have just went with Fireball because it would have been a faster fight. For Nashandra, I spiced things up with some Fireball spam into Fire Whip, so that I could keep things fresh and new within our relationship. And of course, I had to finish the run off with fireballs, because if I didn't, it would be a cardinal sin within the fire magic community. And with that, the Dark Souls 2 portion comes to an end. The total runtime was 13 hours, and I died 52 times. I might have done well in the bosses, but not so much when traveling from point A to point B. With that said, let's jump into Dark Souls 3. For the class this time, we actually have Pyromancy again, so I go with that. The nice thing about the Pyromancy starting class in Dark Souls 3 is that it starts with the Great Swamp Ring, which will increase my Pyromancy damage by 12%. I then name my character after the best Pyromancer in all of anime, Roy Mustang, who happens to be my favorite character from Fullmetal Alchemist. With my character made, Roy arises from the ashes to return once more to eradicate the 7 deadly sins. With that said, let's talk about the Pyromancy Flame. In Dark Souls 3, it's like Dark Souls 2, where Pyromancy scales off of intelligence and faith. The unique thing about Dark Souls 3 is that the Pyromancy Flame has the weapon art Combustion, which is very fitting for a Roy Mustang cosplay. Sadly, it's not as good as DS2 or DS1's Combustion. You can also use the heavy attack to punch enemies for fire damage as well, and at a higher levels, it's actually pretty viable for dealing with trash mobs. With weapon talk over with, I get my Ashen Flask and take on Gundyr the Homunculus, which apparently Homunculus are just like humans and can burn to death pretty easily. After that low effort fight, I do the usual gathering at Firelink Shrine, reallocate my Estus to a 3:2 ratio, and start leveling my intelligence first, since either Innate or Faith will increase damage, but I want the magic defense for the Crystal Sage fight. Once done leveling, I gather up the Titanite shards at Central City Wall and find a wild homunculus granny and kill her for an extra 1,000 souls. I then picked a fight with Sloth's secret love child, Vort. I figured Vort would be weak to fire, but come to find out it's his second highest resistance. Thank you Pokemon for conditioning me to think anything ice is weak to fire. Overall, it's the same fight as normal, hide under his balls while throwing my flaming balls at him until he dies. With Vort out of the picture, I use his souls to get my Innate to 23. I then warp to Undead Settlement to get the Fire Clutch Ring for 50% more fire damage, and rescue Cornix, so that I can now upgrade my Pyromancy Flame and buy Fire Surge. Which I found out real quick is not that great of a spell. It barely does any damage and it uses a lot of mana, hence me dying to the Cursed Rotted Greatwood. I switched to the Fireball spell and it fixed my Cursed Rotted Greatwood dilemma because, as y'all know, Fireball solves everything. I returned to Cornix, bitching to him about Fire Surge, and bought Greater Combustion to make myself feel better. I then trained in the Art of Alchemy to get my attunement to 18 for an extra spell slot and to start putting points into Faith. Part of my alchemy training brought me to a battle with a demon, which a helpful Onion Knight alchemist came to help me out. As tradition goes with this channel, we sit and drink with Onion Knight Bro. Nozdrovia everyone, I hope everything is going well. Once done toasting, I traveled to the Road of Sacrifice to get the Great Swamp Pyromancy Tome and the official Pyromancer uniform. I turned in the tome to buy Fire Orb and Bursting Fireball, which I don't use either one for the Crystal Sage fights. I decided this time I would take a page out of Mustang's book and just went full Combustion. Combine this with just walking in a circle and there was nothing the Sage could do. He had to just sit there and face tank all of it until he couldn't face tank it anymore. I then move on to Farron Keep to bully a legless stray demon to use his soul to get Boulder Heave, and while I was on top of the wall, I got the 2 large Titanite shards to get my flame to +4. After upgrading my weapon, I realized I forgot about the Sage Ring at the Road of Sacrifice, so I made sure to go get it. With that mistake fixed, it was time to tackle the first deadly sin, Greed, aka the Abyss Watchers. I started off with Boulder Heave to take advantage of the knockdown it does to the Abyss Watchers, but this time the Watchers decided they were just going to tank through it. So I switched to Fire Orb and it did way more damage. So much more damage, in fact, Red Eyes decided he wasn't going to attack his brothers, but team up with them to attack me instead. His AI felt so bad for them, he figured they needed more help than me, and it wasn't wrong. Fire Orb absolutely dominated Phase 1. In Phase 2, for some reason, I decided to go back to Boulder Heave and ended up just trading blows every time. Realizing my mistake for the second time, I switched back to Fire Orb, where I just baited out his dash attack to get hits in, and after 5 throws, Greed goes down. With Greed defeated, I level up my intelligence and faith to 25, head to the catacombs to get the Karthus Pyromancy Tome and the Witch Ring, which increases my Pyromancy damage by 20%. I then return to Cornix to give him the tome and buy Karthus Beacon and Poison Mist. With now having Poison Mist and access to Smoldering Lake, I took on the old Demon King. So the plan for this fight was to poison the boss and then use Boulder Heave for damage. What I didn't take into my calculation was how bad I was at aiming it and how slow it was. Every time I used it, I found myself getting hit. So after running out of Estus, I decided to play the long haul game and just poison him to the point I could kill him with a Fire Orb. Looking back at this fight now, I probably should have just waited until I got Dark Pyromancy spells to do this fight, since the Demon King is weak to dark damage, but hey, it is what it is. With the old Demon King dead, I level my intelligence to 30 and trade in the King's Soul for Chaos Bed Vestiges, aka Forbidden Sun. The nice thing about this spell in Dark Souls 3 is that you can cast it more than twice. This is due to 3 having the mana system over the number system. The mana system actually allows the player to utilize the spells, whereas with the number system, with the limited cast, it meant some spells were just going to be used more than others. Yes, DS2 solved this with herbs and water, but when a spell only has 2 casts, it becomes a bit of a hindrance during boss fights, or even while fighting trash mobs. The mana number system aside, I get the Izalith Pyromancy Tome and the Quelana Pyromancy Tome. I give the Izalith Tome to Cornix and buy my favorite Pyro spell from Dark Souls 2, Great Chaos Fire Orb. But instead of using that spell on Wolnir, I use Fire Surge and Karthus Beacon. The reason for Karthus Beacon is that it increases your damage the longer you attack, which worked great for Fire Surge due to its continuous attack, but more importantly, it needed the damage boost to break Wolnir's bracelets. I'm just happy I used this spell successfully and won't have to use it again. After the fight, I grabbed the Grave Warden Pyromancy Tome because I forgot to grab it during the fight. I also forgot that Wolnir's soul needs to be traded in for the Black Serpent spell, which does the Black Fire spell that Frida uses, where black flames come from the ground following you. Instead, I used his soul to buy Chaos Storm. Was hoping this wasn't going to be a trend in all 3 games, but I never disappoint when it comes to fucking up. You can even ask my parents about that one, they can vouch for me. I then head off to the cathedral where I get the Lloyd Sword Ring. I then kill 2 giants for large Titanite shards, pick up the Drong armor for later, and fight the Deacons of the Deep. The Deacons, of course, I went with Chaos Storm thinking it would just wreck house, but it actually missed the Deacon in red when I used it, so I switched to Fire Orb, and funny enough, it did a better job of killing multiple Deacons. Now, when the main Deacon came out, I used Chaos Storm to get rid of the fodder so that I could pelt the main D with my Fire Orb, and with just that, the Deacon of the Deep went down. After the fights, I upgraded my flame to +6, leveled my faith to 30, and then killed the Croc Dog with liquid hot magma. Wait, let me do that one more time. Give me the attack again, quickly, before the caffeine rush runs out. And level my faith to 30 and killed the Croc Dog with liquid hot magma. Yeah, bitch. Then Alva decided to be a real bitch and kill me, that twat. In Ethereal Dungeon, I killed the Giant and Crystal Lizard for some chunks, picked up the Profane Flame, aka Flame Swath, and the Dark Clutch Ring. I then rush on over to the Profane Capital to get the Jailer's Key to be able to free Carla, who I can give the Dark Pyromancy Tomes to so that I can buy Black Fire Orb. Wait, hold on, let me sell some things and buy Black Flame, which is just Great Combustion but in dark magic form. I then get my flame to +7 and take on the Dancer, With now having Dark Pyromancy and the Dark Clutch Ring, I can do some serious damage to Dancer due to her being very weak to dark damage. With Black Flame alone in phase 1, I took off 3/4 of her health bar. If I would have just paid a bit more attention to my mana, I could have easily killed her while she was transforming into phase 2. Phase 2 was simple, just throw Black Fire Orb for the win. The easiest no-hit I have ever done on Dancer. With Dancer defeated, I started working on Vigor to help with survivability. I then did the usual chunk farming afterwards, played around with the Profane Flame for a bit, and upgraded my Pyromancy Flame to +9. With all that done, I was ready for Dragon Slayer armor. I knew from the start this was going to be an easy fight because Dragon Slayer is very weak to fire, and when not locking onto him, he becomes even easier to dodge and hit. Dragon Slayer must have heard me talking shit because he took full advantage of me fucking up with casting Fire Orb and two-shotted the fuck out of me. I can't be mad, that was very well played on his part. Round 2, I learned my lesson that fireballs can't solve all my problems. I stuck with Greater Combustion for the most part. Something cool I did learn was that when Dragon Slayer does his diagonal two-handed attack, if you run up to him on the right side, his attack will just go right over your head. Just goes to show you how clean his hitboxes are. From here, I just keep running in circles around Dragon Slayer, waiting for a whiff and hitting him with Greater Combustion until he dies. After the fight, I level my attunement to 24 to get a 4th spell slot, and with that, I take on Father of the Year Osiris, aka Shao Tucker. Actually, who is worse, Tucker or Osiris? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, FromSoft can go fuck themselves for allowing trash mobs to hit you through fog doors. For the actual first attempt on Osiris, I started with Greater Combustion, thinking it would be the optimal play since the safest spot to fight him is up close, but I found the damage just wasn't too great. So I switched to Chaos Fire Orb, and it did almost triple the damage thanks to the lava left behind afterwards. Once again, Chaos Fire Orb seems to be one of the best, or if not the best, Pyromancy spell in the game, because even in Dark Souls 2, Great Combustion could out DPS Chaos Fireball, but here it seems Chaos Fire Orb is superior. So when Osiris got himself trapped near one of the exits, I was able to melt his HP bar away. With all those souls I just got, I bought Firestorm and Fire Whip from Carla, and keeping with the pattern here, I did not use either one of them for Gundyr 2.0. Gundyr was very simple, just poison him with Poison Mist and roll backwards throwing Black Fire Orb. With him being weak to dark damage, it made for a very short fight. I then get the Coiled Sword Fragment afterwards to trade in with some birds to get a Tynite Slab to then use said slab to get my flame to +10. I do have to say it is kind of weird that we use Tynite Shards to upgrade the flame. Not too sure how that works, but just some food for thought. After upgrading, I get my Phase 235 and put on the Durang outfit for a more fitting Roy Mustang cosplay, which had me all dapper out for Pontiff. For Pontiff, I thought Black Fire Orb was going to be the ideal spell for this fight, but come to find out, Chaos Bed Vestige was the better choice. It did more damage and allowed me to stay further back from Pontiff with its longer range. I thought this was the end for Pontiff, but then some inner desire to live allowed him to literally survive with 1 HP. Like, for God's sake, there's nothing there. Which then turned into Pontiff having a 1 HP in a dream moment, where he was dodging my attacks and using his clone to tank all these hits. For a second, I thought this was it for me, but I decided to just go all out for a great shot, and luckily I was able to survive the trade. In that one brief moment, Pontiff was the main character and I was the villain, which had me starting to root for him near the end. With Pontiff defeated, I had access to the next deadly sin, Gluttony, or more commonly known as Aldrich. I decided this fight would be a good time to use Firestorm, Fire Whip, and Bursting Fireball. Firestorm did okay. You can definitely tell as each game progresses, they heavily nerfed this spell. Fire Whip is still very good for dealing a decent amount of damage, but it's not busted like it was in Dark Souls 2. Then for the final spell, Bursting Fireball was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Even though it does a scatter shot like a shotgun, if all the shots hit, you can almost do as much damage as Firestorm, but can be cast at a lot faster, so it would have the higher DPS overall between the two. The downside is if you do miss with any of the spread shots, then the damage falls off real quick. I do appreciate the variety of spells and how most of them feel very useful to use in Dark Souls 3. With Gluttony defeated, I used the ultimate Pyromancy spell, One Punch Man, to kill a dragon. so that I can fight the deadly sin called Pride, or as y'all know him, the Nameless King. With the King and the King of Chickens being weak to dark, I made sure to go in with Black Flame and Black Fire Orb. Black Flame was used for the chicken for quick hits on his head to get a posture break to deal even more damage quicker, and as you can see, Black Flame made the King of Chickens extra crispy. With the chicken dealt with, that left Nameless, which at first I thought maybe Chaos Bed Vistage would be better than Black Fire Orb, since I could shoot from further away, but it actually did the opposite. So after giving it 2 chances, I moved back to Black Fire Orb and used the Gundyr strategy of just rolling away and throwing. It's kind of shocking how many bosses in this game can be trivialized with ranged weapons. You would think they would have learned their lesson in Dark Souls 1, which they kind of did with Dragon Slayer and Osiris, but majority of Dark Souls bosses can't handle range attacks, making this notoriously hard fight comically easy. With Pride defeated, I get my faith to 39 and bully Sloth with Black Fire Orb. Yorm the Giant's head is his weak spot and takes more damage, which led to easy posture breaks to spam Black Flame. To call this a fight would be an exaggeration. Sadly, Yorm couldn't live up to Sloth from Full Metal Alchemist. After beating Sloth, I get access to the Grand Archives, which means I can get Power Within, and sadly it's not as OP as it was in Dark Souls 1. But it did not stop me from using it in the next boss fight against Lust. If you are wondering why I picked Lust for the Twin Princes, well, let's just say something Game of Thrones-ish is going on with these two. In the first round against the twins, I went with Great Fire Combustion and Profane Flame, thinking the Great Combustion could cover close range while Profane Flame covers long range. Apparently Profane Flame's range isn't as long as I initially thought it was, so seeing that long range wasn't going to work, I went back to close range. The problem here is I forgot in phase 2 after the boss does his big slam attack, he has a melee follow up if you are too close to him. I definitely remembered it after getting hit by it. So, coming back into round 2, I decided to bring my ultimate weapon, Great Chaos Fire Orb. And with all the ring buffs plus Power Within, it did some nutty damage. Especially in phase 2, I was able to take off 3/4 of the Elder Brother's health bar with only 3 casts of it. And when the Elder Brother was trying to be revived, I was able to knock him right back down thanks to the Molten Lava's extra tick damage, allowing me to reenact the infamous Roy Mustang versus Lust scene. Except for the end there, but we don't have to talk about that. So, class, what have we learned today?
Fireball solves everything.
That's correct.
That's not what you said for the Dragon Slayer fight.
Shut up, Scully Jr., no one asked you.
Suck my balls, Mr. Arcane.
You were an accident.
What?
Once done shutting up Scully Jr., I level up to 80, head back to Smoldering Lake to get Sacred Flame, and get sucked on over to the Painted World. Speaking of sucking toes, it's time for Sister Frida. Going into this fight, I knew Sister Frida and Father could be poisoned, so my go-to strategy was to poison Sister and then use Sacred Flame on her. The reality check to that plan was I got smacked 9 out of 10 times when trying to use Poison Mist. On top of that, she didn't get poisoned very easily, so I ended up using more mana than I would have liked. Luckily, I succumbed to a good time. So going back in, I went with Black Flame since I knew it would be a quick attack that I could get off and then roll away. To my surprise, it actually stunned Frida, allowing me to get 2 hits off and then making her run away, which made for an easy first phase. For phase 2, I knew from my past experience, Father is very susceptible to poison, so I only needed to get 1 cast off to proc it. After that, I just ran away, throwing black fire orbs at him until he died. I then tried once again to use poison on Sister Frida, and once again I failed, but I finally got to use Sacred Flame this time, and it did way more damage than I thought it would do. The spell is very strong against human type enemies, but it's a bit slow to get off. So I went with Black Flame for punishing Sister's jumps attacks, and used Sacred Flame for when she went invisible, allowing me to secure the second try. With Frida taken care of, I get the Parting Flame and have a Pyromancy off with Dunnel, showing him I am the better Pyromancer and earning me the Floating Chaos spell. The Parting Flame is a unique Pyromancy glove where it requires 15 strength to use it, but when using spells, it shoots out lava with it, dealing extra damage to nearby enemies, making it the strongest Pyromancy Flame in the game. Its weapon art isn't anything that's useful. After killing 12 enemies, you can regain 1 Estus charge, but the weapon art is so slow, it's not really practical to use in boss fights, or at least the DLC boss fights. With that said, I get the flame to +10 and take on the Demon Prince. Shocker to no one, the Demon Prince has high fire resistance and fairly high dark resistance as well. So the majority of my spells are just useless. Except for one, Boulder Heave. With Boulder Heave strictly doing physical damage, I could actually deal decent damage to the boss. The interesting thing I noticed was that Boulder Heave could hit twice. After the first hit connected, the boulder goes through the prince, and upon landing, it deals more damage to him. With these double hits, it allowed for easy stagger breaks. Now, even with how useful this was, it did not stop me from dying. Boulder Heave is a slow spell, so I needed to find the right time to attack. The 2 times I found were the most consistent. The first is when he does his slash attack, I could get behind him and get a hit off. And the second one is during his beam attack, which was the best time to get a lot of damage off. Now, he was open after he would do any of his slam attacks, but depending on my position, I was too far or it was just not safe due to a possible follow-up attack. So, with finding these 2 openings, I just needed to not fuck up. I fucked up. Luckily, it only took 4 tries to pull it off. I honestly thought it was going to be worse than that. With the Demon Prince slain, I traded in his soul for Seething Chaos and killed Zoe for the Flame Fan. After gathering the remaining Pyromancy spells, I was ready for Gravetender. Here I used Floating Chaos, which places an orb that shoots fire projectiles at enemies, and Flame Fan, which is a slapping tool. Floating Chaos has god-awful aim, and Flame Fan feels pippish. I then tried out Seething Chaos, which acts like a fireball, but if it misses the target, it can explode after a few seconds. I was very disappointed with this spell. Luckily, Sacred Flame made up for that. The comedic part to all this is I used Floating Chaos Orb again once the Giant Wolf came out, which was great for dealing damage to it, but once I took out the wolf, the damn orb would not shoot Gravetender, who was on his last leg. No matter how many times I cast it, it would not shoot at him. What the fuck, FromSoft? Who coded this? Left with no other options, I pit fanned him to death. With that fiasco over with, it was Midir time. And it became the same situation as Demon Prince of just using Boulder Heave. Midir has very high dark resistance and fire resistance, so it became Boulder Heave spam until Midir was heaving his last breath. After slaying the anime dragon, I poisoned Cheese Half-Light to death because fuck that fight. With Half-Light out of the picture, that means it was time to fight Envy. Gale wasn't anything special, I just poisoned him while spamming Chaos Orb at him. The downside to the poisoning, it wasted a good amount of mana to get it off that I actually ran out of it right near the end. So I had to finish this fight with some good old Fire Fist. Surprisingly, the damage was much higher than I thought it was going to be. I figured it would do about like 60 damage at most, so when it did 146, it was a very welcoming surprise. I then level up for the last time, offer up the 6 Deadly Sin Souls so that I could bathe in their ashes to take on the final Deadly Sin, Wrath. At the start of the fight, Cinder had the upper hand due to me using Black Fire Orb, but once I remembered how strong the Black Flame and Parting Flame Glove combo was, the Soul of Cinder didn't stand a chance. With cosplaying as Roy Mustang, it would be fitting to finish this fight off with Black Flame, but I had to finish off the Trilogy run with a Fireball because we all know Fireball is the only spell you really need. And with that, the Dark Souls Trilogy Pyromancy run comes to an end. Total runtime for Dark Souls 3 was 10 hours and 17 minutes, and total death count was 38. With that said, it's time to get into the rankings as to which Dark Souls game did Pyromancy the best. Coming in last place, and I probably will get a lot of comments about this one, is Dark Souls 1. Don't get me wrong, Dark Souls 1 Pyromancy was busted, which did make it fun blowing up bosses, but that does get redundant quick. Also, having bosses immune to fire was also a major drawback since it makes it impossible to beat the game with Pyromancy only. Coming in second place, which I struggled here with this placement, is Dark Souls 2. This was probably the most fun I have ever had with DS2, and it's my least favorite game in the trilogy, so that is saying a lot that I'm putting it above DS1. DS2 just did a better job of balancing the Pyromancy damage, besides the busted poison and toxic combo. The only drawback was having to farm herbs and water to refill casting. I believe if DS2 had a mana system instead, it could have been in first place. Which now leaves first place, which of course goes to Dark Souls 3. With DS3 having the mana system, it allowed all the spells to actually have a chance with being useful in fights and actually made me want to use them. On top of that, the balancing of damage just felt right for the most part. With all that said, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, hit that subscribe button. At this time, I would also like to thank my channel supporters. If you too would like to support the channel or have your name in the video, you can click the Patreon link in the description or click the YouTube join button. I also from time to time stream my runs, so you can catch me streaming on YouTube or over on Twitch at Eagleed Gaming. I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, take care.